Tabletop is brought to you by the following sponsor.
Are you looking for something comfortable to wear and keep your brain warm while playing tabletop games? Daily Dose of Yarn makes handmade, customized beanies for all of your style and comfort needs. She can even help you with a custom beanie to represent your favorite character. Check out Daily Dose of Yarn on Instagram and Etsy to order your new favorite beanie today.
Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of Tabletop. Today, some DMs and I sit down and talk about alignment. Is it a useful thing to have in a game? We talk about how players can use it, how DMs can use it, and whether it's really of any use at all. If you're interested in talking about this subject with us or want to suggest another topic for the pod, you can always email us at tabletopspodcast@gmail.com or send us a DM on Twitter @tabletop. All right, enjoy the show. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tabletops. Today, I have some of my good friends here with me to talk about alignments. Mostly player alignments, but we can also talk about monster alignments, things, how this interacts with character dynamics at the table, how DMs can use it, how you don't want to use it. But first, why don't we all introduce ourselves? My name is Nick, as always, your host. And who's that across the table from me?
This is Daniel. I run D&D. I'm a dungeon moderator. If you want to look at me on Twitter, it's @Coronor, both and on Instagram.
Hello, my name is Greg. I am a D&D player.
My name's Sean. I am a returning fan favorite, just also a D&D player. Sean_O'Neill, spelled like one all on the Twitters.
You can also look, I think it's like, you always do like a fun pun with your name.
Yeah, it's always a fun pun. I think
right now you're Seance Knowles.
I was Seance Knowles, but I think I changed it recent to the Shawning. Here's
Nice,
Shawnee.
nice. Great.
Of course.
All right, everyone. So let's just quickly go around with our general self-identified alignments. I feel like I am probably lawful neutral.
I'd have to say neutral good.
Chaotic good. I think I'm fairly chaotic good.
I would say neutral good as well, with some lawful tendencies.
So what does that mean? So when you guys are going around making a character, do you guys ever start with an alignment chart, or do you guys what use of alignment do you get?
So I hope this makes sense when I say it in words instead of thoughts. But I think about what has happened to that character and their view on how they're going to interact with other people, and that is sort of what gives me an idea for what their alignment would be as far as rules is written.
Sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's sort of also the thing, too. The character alignment can change over time.
That's true.
So if you do enough things that make you a bad person, you're not chaotic good or neutral good anymore. You've kind of crossed over. You've done some shady stuff.
I disagree. 5 minutes in.
Real quick, actually, because I just realized that I skipped over what a alignment chart is.
Right.
So we should start there. So who wants to run us through what an alignment chart is and what's on it?
I think Daniel, since he's got the strongest opinion on...
I said I disagreed, not that I had a stronger opinion than you did. But yeah, I'll take it. So the alignment chart in D&D is basically like your character on an axis between law and chaos and good and evil. So I guess you would kind of set it up like a quadrant.
It's like you're playing tic-tac-toe. There's 9 options.
Yeah. And you kind of put yourself where you feel your character would fall on that. Lawful being, I'm going to follow the rules because those are the rules. Chaotic being, I'm going to do what I feel and emotion. It's more like logic and emotion versus law and chaos. That's what I use to go by.
Yeah.
And then good and evil is, do you help others good, or do you focus on yourself evil? So it's more of how selfish and absorbed is your character going to be, and then you mix all that together to get one of the 9 alignments.
And it is sort of, I think it's designed to be sort of a general, for someone who's new to, I was about to say to improvising, to role-playing, that it's sort of like a general compass to keep you on track. If you're like, I have no idea what my character would do. It's like the brass tacks of, lawful evil. Okay, that means I'm going to use the like laws and the creeds that I have to benefit myself as much as possible to the detriment of those around me. And that's a way to help make a decision for a character if you're kind of lost.
And to clarify what I was disagreeing with Sean about, he was saying your actions determine your alignment, where I would just like to say that how you view yourself. It doesn't matter what you do or how you act. It's what you in your mind are trying to achieve, what your self-actualized persona would be doing. Do you see yourself as a lawful good person?
That's
you
so
can
interesting.
fail, but that doesn't change your alignment because you're still aligned with the ideals of doing these things.
Well, see, I don't know if I agree because
I know you don't because you said the opposite thing.
okay, but even by what you're saying, so what if you don't see yourself as the baddie, but you're the baddie? You are 100% the baddie, and you're like, no, I'm doing this for everybody, but it's not. You're the baddie.
Point of clarification, Daniel. Are you saying that the player is viewing this character in the self-actualized
I
sense,
have to
or
say
that
you
the
have to view
character
this
is?
as you yourself, or you the player. Once you start bringing in the villains and the that's where it gets murky because obviously if you're the DM, you're writing these characters, so you're going to give their alignment lawful evil if they're actually hurting people. But they might themselves, if they were a player character, be like, "Oh, I'm lawful good because I'm doing this for good."
Yeah.
And that's what you got. The perspective of the alignment chart also is what really matters when you're trying to decide what you are or what another character would be.
And this is something we've been running into a lot in our campaigns recently. By the way, our beloved audience, all of us play in several campaigns together. So we can kind of talk with this shared frame of reference that both of them, in some ways, get into areas that are morally gray. And we have been dealing with a thing where it's like, man, we're the good guys. And I think that is where the alignment system breaks down because it really simplifies the idea of good versus evil on a binary. And when you really try to delve into like more complexities and like more like just hard situations, more real life situations, it's a lot harder to place yourself on one of those. So yeah, I feel like it's hard to like label yourself, especially when you're like, no, I was doing the right thing, and then it's like, oh, but that dropped an island on somebody.
Right, yeah. And
We'll
just
never live that
because
down.
just because you've made a bad decision that led to the downfall of, say, an island, doesn't necessarily make you a bad. Like, you made a mistake. It was a huge, giant mistake.
Yeah.
That caused untold death and destruction that you didn't quite foresee, but you thought you were right, and that mistake doesn't necessarily make you a more evil person. It just makes you fallible.
Yeah.
Which is why I think the alignment is an ideal and not an actual like core mechanic.
I'm actually kind of in the middle ground here when it comes to that. I think because when I'm hearing Sean and Daniel talk, on one hand, I do kind of agree with Sean when it comes to, I think actions are a big part about justifying like what your actions justify or produce who you are as a person. On the other hand, when it comes to perception, one of the things that I have found very frustrating when it comes to D&D is the idea of like the lawful good paladin, because back in older editions, there were so many penalties about not following a certain code of law and things like that.
Yeah, I know, but I totally know what you mean because like there really isn't right now any sort of.
Well, I guess the thing about it is, like, for example, yeah, they changed that because it's kind of like the idea of what makes you lawful as a paladin. Like, is it like that you follow the laws, or are you following a personal code?
Yeah, that's another thing that because this is the thing that I have reduced alignment down in my heart is that the good and evil is actually like not super important. It's a good place to start from, to your point, Sean, where you're like, when I'm making a character, are they good, bad, or somewhere in
Ugly.
between?
No.
Yeah. Exactly.
Great movie.
And so then it's a really great way to plot your first moment of a character and start, because you have to start somewhere. But I find that the more interesting thing to do is to grab the lawful versus chaotic nature of the chart and say, okay, am I going to challenge myself to give my character a set of rules that they follow. And that could be, I follow the law of the land. Or it could be, I don't kill. You know what I mean? Like, Batman is a lawful character, even though he's a vigilante. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't kill.
He follows his own code.
He follows his creed
to the letter.
To the letter. But then,
Batman's lawful neutral, just if anyone wants my opinion.
Oh, here we go.
And then on the other side, you have chaotic, which, like Daniel said, it's a lot more, I can do anything at any time. I'm not set in a thing, which I think that if you're going to start playing for your first time, you're going to have more fun if you just let yourself be a little chaotic, because then you can kind of bounce over wherever your id takes you.
I'm going to try to illustrate kind of the point of what you can do with alignment as best as I can, comparing two characters that I'm currently playing in different campaigns. The first one, his name is Abraham Washington, and he's a fighter, an Eldritch Knight. He is, as far as like, as I have him, he is lawful neutral. He adheres to like the law of the wilds, so like survival of the fittest, these things. He's on a revenge quest, so like he doesn't follow the laws of the land, but he has a very strict code of like, oh, this is the law. I'm going to follow it. I'm going to do it. But he doesn't try to harm anyone. He just tries to keep a balance, and he tries to be good. So like lawful neutral.
But I will say, which is like an intricacy of this whole alignment chart, which is that he follows the law of the land, which is the law of the wilds, which is sort of like the strong get to make the rules, right? And so like there are moments where he is following the law and he is being lawful, but he is breaking the law of man in whatever city we are or whatever. Yeah. And that both of those things can be true at the same time.
Yeah. And then I have another character who's lawful evil, because I don't believe a lot of people are like, oh, you can't play an evil character in my campaign. But if you, again, always worry, like if you're playing any character, you're playing as part of a group. So even if your character is evil, just remember, like, you wouldn't backstab and betray your player party, because that breaks the game and isn't fun for anyone. But I'm playing a lawful evil character. His name is Valen Antiborn, who, again, was sold into hell as an infant, as a firstborn sacrifice. And he follows that sort of same rule, where it's like, it's the law of might makes right.
Yeah.
He has a strict code of what he will do, what he won't do. But he's evil in the fact that he could literally not care who he hurts.
Yeah.
Because his whole outlook on life is, you have to survive.
Right.
Other people are going to die around you. You can't be worried about it. So I play that character as evil, as the fact that he will, and he has sacrificed NPCs for his own betterment to gain more power.
Just so that the audience isn't like, what kind of games do they play? I will say that only like two characters other than Valen know that happened. All the players know, but only a couple.
And again,
characters.
to keep it from breaking the game, to like, you can't play. You have to be subtle, and you have to do these things kind of like on a track of, hey, everyone, is everyone going to be? This is what my character is. Does that jive? And if it doesn't, then you got to tone it down a little bit, because remember, that's what my character would do, is a terrible excuse to do anything, whether you're playing lawful good or chaotic evil.
This is a really great point about how a DM can use this chart at the session, like a session 0. You can go around and say, okay, what's everyone's alignments? To just get a tone for like what they want to play. If everyone's like, I'm lawful good, I'm lawful neutral, I'm chaotic good, I'm whatever, and most people are good or some lawful or neutral thing, then you're like, okay, so I have a general group of folks who are looking to, act in the world's betterment, and like I can design for that. But if you have people who are like, I'm lawful good, and someone's like, I'm chaotic evil, then you can sit down and be like, okay, we have to figure this out right now, because this isn't going to work if I just let this go unchecked.
Okay, that being said, I did in our first Canaries game in JP. I spoke with Daniel about it directly. I was like, yeah, my character is chaotic evil. He's not going to tell anybody about it.
Yeah.
But he is out for himself, for his own gains, and he's gonna play these people up until he doesn't need them anymore, and then he's probably gonna betray them. And Dan was like, "Great, we'll work on that."
Right. Yeah. And that's again, always have a session 0 because you can work on that stuff. But like if someone just like in a campaign rolls a new character or something for some reason, and it's like, hey guys, I'm coming in and I'm going to have this like crazy character concept of an evil character that is trying to is just like obsessed with death. And so he's trying to kill everyone around him or something. Or like, I want to play a necromancer that's trying to, become a lich. If that doesn't work with the campaign, this is a great way of a red flag going up and being like, okay, we can work with this.
Remember, you can make players have opposing goals
Yeah.
and still make the game fun. And I don't know if I've ever talked about how much I enjoy Dragonlance, but I really enjoy the Dragonlance series. And one of their characters is literally like Lawful Evil, Rastlin Madry, the mage, who is on a quest to become like the dark god and replace the queen of the abyss. But all of his friends are like, hey, we're good. We're trying to stop a war and build civilization. And why they come, like, there's a lot of friction in that group at times. They still manage to do their main goals together. But the end game, of course, is going to have to wrap up with going separate directions, which is an option if you're running a longer campaign and everyone knows where you're headed.
And that's a great point, too, because, like, you can, as long as you make them align in some way... like if everyone is diametrically opposed, it's gonna be hard.
That's going to be a hard game to play.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
hard game to DM.
Yeah.
It's not great.
Honestly, you're not gonna have fun as like it might sound fun as a player. You're not gonna have fun.
No, you'll be
It's
a
just- you're
lot,
not gonna be
a
fun.
lot of bickering back and forth. No decisions being made. You'll spend more time doing that than actually playing the campaign.
Motivations can be different, but the goals have to align.
That's it exactly.
I'm
Couldn't
very
have said that better.
smart.
That's
Well done.
So the real alignment chart is
the friends you made along the way.
Adding to that, though, I definitely agree. Like, goals are an important factor. Alignments can be a little bit, it can be a little bit more open and vague. Because I'm normally a person who likes to have something going. Like, I want to know if we're playing a generally good campaign. Are we a generally evil campaign? But right now we're doing a Waterdeep campaign where it's kind of the first. Because we're talking, it's the same character that Daniel's Valen is in. And I have this character, Kristoff, and I thought I was going to be playing him one way, but now I'm not exactly sure where he's going, because the way that I played Kristoff is that Shay told me that it was generally a bunch of good players, and that was a little bit led astray. And so the way that Kristoff is going on this is that my character is somebody who's like been recently become like a half vampire of sorts. So he generally needs blood to survive. And I was going to play him as somebody who was resisting his dark nature and trying to be a better person and still be a good person. And I'm kind of letting the rest of the party influence him and see where it goes, because on the other hand, like Nick, your character Marks, who's a very decent human being, is like, Kristoff, you can't go around, like, you can't succumb to your rage. You gotta like be you still gotta be a good person. You have responsibilities. You have to use these gifts. And then you have Valen, who's like, you're freaking beautiful, man. What are you doing? Embrace the monster. And
you could drink so much blood now.
Just in like it's like conquer your enemies, and it's just kind of like, and the way that I'm playing Kristoff is that he sees both sides of the argument. It's like because on one hand it's good. He wants to help people. I think he generally wants to help Waterdeep. The idea is that it's his city. He wants to make sure the bad guys are not hurting the innocent. On the other hand, it's exhausting. And Valen is giving him like this outlet of like, you're a demigod, man. Just be you.
Valen once dropped an anchor on a mugger because that was the fastest way to end the fight. You can do bad things for good reasons.
Well, it's just
and that's perfectly playable.
Yeah, like the thing about both Kristoff and Valen in that example is that they both have the same motivations in that way. Like Valen also sees, I don't know if he sees Waterdeep as his city, but he views like the acts of like murderers and the criminal elements as inherently bad. He has a very black and white view of things, and so he just like kills them. But that also applies to like, oh hey, you're like down on your luck, you don't have any food or whatever, so you steal, and then this fucking monster comes out and rips your head off.
But to defend Valen a little bit, he also did save and befriend some gnome children.
I want to clarify that you're a little off.
Oh, was I? I thought that was
because Valen's thing is you can do whatever you want. Like if you're stealing food to survive, Valen doesn't care.
Sure.
If you hurt someone to steal that food, Valen hates people that use power over others because he was given to the demon Furfur, and
Furfur.
He was powerless for like
adorable name, incredible asshole.
So he will target criminals that use their power, but he also did start a riot in the town square because he felt the city watch was treating him unfairly.
Yeah.
So, like, whether you're yourself are a good or a bad person, if you're using power over others and Valen finds it abusive, Valen's going to come at you with everything that he has, and he's got to the point where he has a lot to come with now.
Right.
Yeah.
It's also interesting too because, like, you were saying that the party's influencing you, like and going back to how alignment can function within a game. Like Marx is just like a private detective in Waterdeep, so he has no demon elements or anything. But he's like generally unaware of this stuff. But he's also just like, okay, vampire dude, we let you into our party. We think you're fine. We're not making any judgments. But we came across some like clerics of the sun god and you ripped their head off. We should go apologize for that. So it can be fun to have alignments also like cross in that way, as long as the players are willing to, as long as they're not going to be so stuck in their choice that they aren't willing to kind of work with the story, I guess.
And again, you could always talk to each other outside of a session and like plot these things and decide, oh, my character's lawful good, I think he'll come at you this way, and have a couple of things in your pocket, like prepared mentally for the improvisation that will come like in the game with the dice.
Shoot, I just forgot what I was going to say. Please ignore me.
That is terrible podcast.
I know. It was going to be something about Kristoff. Oh, it was, I think what Nick was going to say, or what Greg was going to say to Nick, that those Clerics of the Light had it coming, though.
Well,
they weren't great.
To be fair, they drew their weapons first.
Yeah, they're like, oh, you're a vampire? We kill vampires.
And I did resurrect two out of the three.
Wait. You resurrected?
I gave the...
We all went together, or you and I went together, and I was like, come on, we got to do this. And
I
like,
offered the blood. I offered. It was my idea. Also, somebody, and I'm not going to name names, stopped one of them from coming back because... I don't know, maybe he got traded to hell or something.
I can't help that I was offered a boon to make sure that one person's soul didn't come back to the material plane.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's
move on from the table talk, okay? But I will also say, like, one of the things that I am kind of have been obsessed with for a little while, and one thing I really want to do because we're actually meeting tomorrow to come up with some of our future games that we're going to play.
Yeah.
I'm really obsessed with playing a character. Going back to your original point, Sean, it was you, Daniel, who said, like, the way the alignment chart works for you is that it's, like, how this person sees themselves in their, like, greatest form or whatever. Like, I'm really interested right now in playing a character who thinks, because of what they've done and who they are and just, like, how the world has shaped them, that they are a bad person, and then spend a campaign seeing if they actually are or not. You know what I mean? Like coming to the point of like, oh, maybe I'm not, like maybe there's something in me that's worth redemption or whatever. And I think that can also be really fun to do, where you can say, okay, this is how my character views himself, but then have like sort of some player secrets of like how you're going to play him to be like, but maybe that's not 100% the case. You know what I mean?
Because that'd be like a really interesting actor exercise. Here's how my character views himself But these are his actual core tenets that make him as a person that he may not be able to see.
Ooh, that is cool.
Too close.
So it's like almost like creating two alignments for yourself. One is like the one that is the conscious mind thinks, and then the other one. And you could do that the other way too. Someone who thinks that they are the fucking hero, but underneath it all, they are just like kind of a vicious.
Right, because how often
person.
does that happen in real life? Like you hear about people, oh, they have imposter syndrome. They think they're not good enough. So they think, oh, I'm failing. But they're actually like, they're doing too much. They're going above and beyond. They're like often like the best workers. And it's like how you view yourself and what you're actually doing can be very different.
Yeah.
And playing that with that knowledge as the player and not just the character is just, it would be really interesting storytelling.
And and to add to that, then there's people who are absolutely certain that they are in the right and they're doing what is necessary, and they make for some of the most horrific, antagonists that have been in literature and fiction.
I will say a lawful antagonist is way more scary than a chaotic antagonist. Because like a chaotic antagonist is more like a force of nature, sort of like a wildfire, where it's just like, man, that sucks. A lot of people just got hurt and a lot of things got destroyed, and this is like bad. But one that has like rules really always are, like you said, Greg, a lot worse because there's a lot more humanity in there that is interesting to play with.
I've tried to toy with that in this most recent campaign that I've been running because it's about
you fucking have one of the best fucking NPCs that we all hate so much. This priest, that's what I'm talking about. Okay.
So this demon has sort of like possessed this human body, completely taken over, and has like led an insurrection into this country, which is currently called Triune. And one of this like demon's followers, his name is Caleb Strada. He is a priest of the Church of Night. Don't sue me, people who write Sabrina. And after a town got hijacked by like a third enemy, like they came in, a lot of people got hurt, a lot of things got destroyed. This priest of the bad guy was right in the mix, healing, preaching for his side. And again, one of my themes is if you are going for, like, you should do things to empower yourself. If you are mighty and you can survive, then that is what's right. And he was talking all of this talk. He was getting people on his side. He came to the Canaries. The Canaries are, as this kingdom is concerned, outlaws because they have killed a couple of high-level generals, which are, like, above game, lawful evil characters doing things that are bad, but see themselves as just creating a kingdom where they can thrive because all these people had been like sort of victimized in the previous corner. So playing characters that actually believe that they're lawful good when they are in fact lawful evil can be tricky. And of course, like, how would you play that? Well, thankfully we don't have to worry about that. They're the NPCs. We can just label them lawful evil, which makes it easier. But he had all of these arguments, and the players were given like one of their hardest struggles because this was someone in town that was promoting the propaganda of the bad guy, but was not an actual physical threat. So like, how do you stop that when you can't out-talk them when they're making arguments that make sense to some people, and violence can't be the answer? A lot of, I think, D&D games and TTRPGs kind of rely on, this will be combat and we'll resolve it like that. What do your players do when they can't? My players just teleported him 3 miles away and just forgot that was the best they could do, and then moved on.
Out of sight, out of mind, baby.
Yeah.
But that is one of my favorite NPCs that I've written because it was one of their most hated. Like, it was memorable to the party. They still, of everything that they've forgotten or have moved on from, Caleb Strada will still get a reaction emotionally from everyone who was there.
He's such a tool.
One thing, so we've talked a little bit about how this can influence role playing, and I would also say, just real quick, from in my heart of hearts, that alignments are like, you can use them to challenge yourself, but once you kind of find a character and like the one that you like playing and all of that, then your decision should come out of that character rather than any sort of alignment. Like if you're decided when you started that you're going to be super lawful, never going to break a law ever. But then you're like, have this great character that came out of that. And it got to a point where, their friends are in danger. They have to, steal some money to pay a bribe to get them out or something. You don't have to end a campaign because of some hard and fast rule, unless that's like what you want to explore. But again, you should talk to your DM about that, because you can give your characters fatal flaws on an alignment chart. But I would just suggest, like, these are rules. Do the thing that's the best thing for the story, for the group, for everyone to keep having fun. Unless you really want to make it into a story moment, which can also be fun for everyone. You just have to kind of, and this is the hard part, you just kind of have to know the difference. But I also want to talk to you guys a little bit about using alignments in other parts of running games. So there's a lot of spells that refer to alignments, like detect evil, things like that. There's also a lot of items that are in the rules as written stuff that require a certain alignment and things like that. What do you guys think about that? And like, how would you track that? Like, because for me, it's always been so tricky, and whenever like detect good or evil comes up in our games, we're sort of like, shrug.
Well, I think this is like we've talked about as a player, as role playing, the alignment has to be nebulous and sort of as you see it. But as I was about to bring up, and I'm glad that you brought us to this part of the conversation, is what do you do when you have like a weapon, like, and I'm probably going to misquote the actual descriptions, a weapon like the Holy Avenger that has to be wielded by a lawful character, or spells that some spells give you a bonus if you're good, some spells give you a bonus if you're evil. How do you play with those if your alignment is sort of an ideal in these things? I would say in those situations it becomes sort of like a out of game conversation with like the DM and the player, like, does this weapon work for you? What do you think? Get like the player's opinions, and you kind of both work out outside of the game how that will actually affect your character in the game. Because I think if you just pick up a weapon that can only attune to someone who's good, and you're like, oh, yeah, I view myself as lawful good, but I've been playing this lawful evil character, that maybe you have to work out some way to break those rules so that you have access to that magical item because you're good, it's good, but it maybe doesn't work as well as the description says that it does because you're also bad. I think for a lot of those weapons, there's also like, if you do something, you get renown, like with the weapon, and it like, if you do too many bad things while you are wielding it, it rejects you and unattunes and falls off. So there are ways to kind of play it with that, but again, those weapons or spells and items shouldn't be introduced like on the fly. If you're worried about alignment, you really have to like do that with intent and with conversation.
So briefly going back to the Waterdeep campaign, my half giant paladin got Azure Edge, which is a lawful good axe. So it obeys the law of the land in Waterdeep. And my Goliath paladin is not a lawful good. He's chaotic good. He wants to do the right thing, but he's got a temper. He's closer to a barbarian than a paladin, actually. And he just wields this axe, but now that he's got it, every time he wields it, it's like, is this the thing I do that the axe is going to be like, step too far?
Yeah.
And now you can't wield me. And it's been a fun development for him to be able to use this and question both his morals and does he really want to use the morals of this sentient weapon that, he's able to wield for now, like for how long? Does he become more in line with the weapon, or does he find himself, distancing himself from it and then becoming unable to use it? Because it's a great weapon and he loves it, but it, he also wants to like maybe smash somebody's skull in with it one day.
Is the weapon corruptible? If the weapon could make you do lawful things or your character elegant, could you, if you wield this, what did you call it again?
Azure Edge.
Azure's Edge long enough, could you convince it to change its alignment to chaotic good?
Well, see, this is a fun thing because, it's possible. He got the axe because the person he got it from was a officer of the land of some sort, but that guy was not a good dude, and that's how the axe. It was after the guy was dead, after we had killed him because he was a bad dude. We got the axe, and it's like, well, the axe was following along with his bad dude. Did he not sense motivation?
It's like a reverse One Ring.
Yeah.
Like it's jumping from good to good instead of looking for evil things to take it back. Yeah, that's fun.
One of the other ideas, I guess, is that if you really want to do something that is focused on alignment, like you have like a dire consequence. For example, one thing I can think of is the Hand of Vecna, where at least in one interpretation of it is like, for those of you who don't know, it's Vecna is a very dangerous lich, and one of the artifacts is a hand. You chop off your hand, you put the hand on, all of a sudden you get these really cool abilities. However, it's a very, very corrupting influence, and if you don't do bad things like, say, suck the lives out of people in order to sustain yourself, the hand literally starts eating your soul. So, and it's a gradual period of time, so it's kind of like... One of the interesting things with that one is like, all right, I need to take on this big bad. This hand's going to give me a lot of power. I'm not going to try to be a bad person, or I'm going to try to resist the temptation. But then you have like a tick-tock. Something's going. You are going to be suffering some consequences. Now, granted, that's an extreme circumstance, but it also could create some interesting storylines.
Yeah, I was about to say something about that too, where it's like, alignments could just be a basic Alignments could just be a basic story prompt for the DMs to be like, okay, this is, like you said, Sean, like this is a lawful good axe, and this person starts doing something unlawful, then maybe the axe like becomes like really dead weight in your hands. Maybe it takes your bonus action as well to swing it each turn because like, oh man, you're disappointing the axe or whatever. Or like Daniel was saying, is it a sentient weapon that you can talk to, and then does it become a kind of a challenge of wills of like who can convince the other person that they're right, because that's all really what all this is a way to kind of trace and track what people think is right, like consensus, I guess. So it's an interesting way to view it too, is just, okay, these are ways to put story elements into a campaign that are otherwise innocuous, like spells or items.
I'd also like to get like the room's opinion. Also, if you're listening, tweet us if you have strong opinions and thoughts.
At Tabletop on Twitter.
But the two spells that kind of been updated from former editions, Detect Good and Evil and Protection from Good and Evil, no longer are based on actual alignment, but they target creature types. Celestial, Fiends, Fae, and Undead. I believe there's a fifth one that I'm...
Aberration?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I just got such a shrug from Daniel.
I mean, I don't know. So your guessing didn't trigger the thought in me, right or wrong. But it's like, that's sort of like implies, okay, I mean, yeah, Celestial's good, Fiend's bad, Undead, usually not great.
Sean's like, hey, come on.
But, there's lots of stories in which, like, the ghosts are just like, oh, hey, I'm a ghost. Nearly Headless Nick. I wouldn't say is evil, but I guess...
But he does steal the heads of children. So... There's a little bit of chaos. No, I'm kidding.
Read that part of the book.
Was that a dream I had? I don't remember.
It was in one of the tweets when JK was trying to destroy her franchise.
it's in the erotica she self-published later on.
Jesus.
No, but there are like stories of like benevolent ghosts. There's the ghost of Christmas Past. It's dead. It's not bad.
He's just looking for a party.
Yeah.
No, that's Christmas Present.
Christmas Present. Yeah.
Sorry, I got my ghost confused.
That's okay. There's too many.
Christmas Future also
Neutral. Totally neutral.
I would say chaotic good.
I'd say very benevolent. It's some tough love right there. It's like, get your ass in gear. You're screwing things up. So.
Lawful fearful.
Lawful fearful.
Fearful good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you
No,
first.
no, please.
You sure? Yeah. Okay. I was going to say, because you were asking Daniel what our thoughts were on it. I like that it's kind of like labeling it as creatures as opposed to alignments, because again, I think one of the conversations we've been having in all of this is that people are really complicated. Mortals are complicated. So it can get a little tricky and a little muddled, and I think, and that's personally my 2 cents, like there's very few people that are 100% good or 100% evil, and fiends and celestials tend to be like the one little loophole you can have for something that is saturated in a morality.
I would also say that like the binary of good and evil works way better if it's more of a war gamey type setting, like the original like D&D first edition, and like all the way up through 3.5, I guess. It's like very much like, okay, you're trying to get through this dungeon. There are evil things inside. Go in there, kill them all, get all the gold, and get out. Like, and then that becomes like a very much an easier way to kind of group things by saying those things are evil, these things are good. Okay, go fight them and beat them. But if you're trying to tell a little bit more of an intricate story, which is why I think D&D has sort of evolved into, and a lot of other TTRPGs, then it does require a bit more nuance, which is hard.
Right. And there's nothing saying that playing your campaign like that is necessarily wrong. If you want all the skeletons in your dungeon to be evil, and it's zombies, and there's an evil necromancer, and there's an evil red dragon, then everything that you're going toward is evil, and you don't need that gray area with your players. They just want to go and wreck house. That's a way to do it, and there's nothing wrong with playing that game if that's the way you want to play it.
Yeah, I will say that one of my favorite characters I've ever played is my character Savar. He's a celestial warlock snake person, and the way I play him is that he's
a good snake.
He's a good snake. He's kind, he's weird, he generally wants to help people out, and I play him with his heart's open to the world, and he just wants to make life bearable for his friends and the people around him. And I have a lot of fun playing him. And but then again, I also like playing complicated characters. So it's the game you want to play.
Yeah, I also think that it's in a previous episode, I think it was the Creating a Welcoming Table episode, which is a great one. You should go listen to it. We talk about how your campaign doesn't always have to reflect the things in the world that we don't want to see. Like, if you don't want to have characters that are, super, like, I don't know, with like certain elements of our world that we're just like, we need a break from, we want an escape from. It can be really nice, like you said, to just play an open-hearted, good person and have that like label stick on you and just say, I want everyone to kind of respect that. I want people to know that I'm not doing nefarious deeds deep down, and I want to play in a world that's okay, and that's going to be okay for this sweet snake.
Well, I think that's with the Yuan-Ti, the snake people in particular, in the monster manual, those are chaotic evil or just true evil, lawful evil character. I can't remember which, but they're quote unquote they're evil, and it wasn't until they started becoming a playable character race that they're like, well, so all the Yuan-Ti that we run into in the world aren't necessarily evil, are they? You know? And so that was a good way to bring nuance into just the monsters that you encounter. So not every monster is going to be evil. You could have a good beholder. It could happen.
Yeah.
Not likely with the beholder.
Isn't there a nice beholder in Spelljammer?
I'm unfamiliar with Spelljammer.
I feel like there's like I think his name is Luigi. And he's just like, hey, y'all, I'm going to sell you stuff. And I might be totally wrong.
I
but
feel
I
like
think
you're
it's
shitting
true.
me.
Like,
honestly.
And then there's like his Waluigi beholder, is the evil beholder in Spelljammer.
I know, yeah. I actually think that this is real. I'm pretty sure that this is real. I feel crazy, but no.
You look crazy.
Nick, you got to lay off the seltzer. I'm worried about you.
Nick, get off the table.
But I guess like while we're here, we can like kind of tap into the old tradition versus new tradition of evil races in D&D.
Yeah, that's tough.
Because one of the ones that there's a lot, but in my games, when I'm running in Koronor, I have orcs. Well, orcs have always been, orcs are evil, orcs are bad. took when I was writing them into like the world's like history and lore. I asked, why are the orcs like generally evil? And what I've done is because I still wanted to use them as a foe, but I didn't want to just fall back on orcs evil, people good.
Right.
So what I've written in is that there's I have a lot of like different planes in my world setting. They are from the Sorna, a world that's sort of like neighboring Coronor in like the astral cosmology. And their world has died. It's a desert, completely like wiped out.
Mad Max.
Very Mad Max. They have to like really fight hard to survive. There's oases, but the oasis can only support so many living humanoids. So they have gotten kind of accustomed to fighting and killing to keep what they need. And in the world lore, I have rifts that sort of open up sporadically between one plane and another. And orcs have moved into Coronor, and there's like this whole big like kerfuffle. As
They're
the
like,
orcs
wow,
are like,
there's water everywhere.
orcs are like, oh, there's so much stuff. We need to take as much of it as we can, as fast as we can, because we'll die without resources. And they're just used to seeing resources and fighting blood to get it. So that's kind of like why the orcs are always an antagonistic force when you're meeting them. But they've also had them in small groups, and we're playing now in one game where we have an orc in the party. His name is Grook.
Grook, actually, but that's
Grook.
okay.
Because I kind of have played it. It's been enough centuries have passed.
Also, Grook is very stupid.
Grook is very stupid. But also there's Cicero, who's another orc that was I wrote in before that you had. And these are the orcs that have sort of like fallen away from their tribes and are like trying to like, okay, we don't have to fight and kill in this world.
Though Grook, when his beloved companion died, as was custom in his tribe back in the other plane, devoured his friend so that, you know, there's no wasted resources, right? Does not function very well with resurrection rules.
So there are ways to keep your evil races as the bad guys. I just think you have to take more time to give them a reason for why they're opposed, I guess, more antagonistic than evil. And also just make sure that you are allowing that this isn't a racial standard. It's just what's common in that culture, but cultures change and it's a possibility that they don't have to do this with some innate.
It would be interesting if they changed out the spell of like sense good and evil to like sense bloodlust or like sense intent or something like that, where you could.
Wasn't there a roll? There used to be like a sense motive roll or something.
Yeah, it's like it's insight.
Oh,
yeah, but
yeah.
there used to be something that's like
They're
specific.
very specific
Yeah,
to
right.
that.
And that gets tricky because what if you like are trying to do that with your players, or if you're trying to like have a villain that you're role playing and you don't want to be like, oh, I roll to see if they're tricky.
So I actually heard a really interesting way to deal with that, where if someone rolls really high on your, like, you're introducing the big bad evil person in like a tavern and they're all like level 5, it's still too early in the campaign, but you want to like start planting seeds or whatever. And someone's like, I want to roll an insight on this. And they just crush their insight. You can say like, you specifically think that there's just something off about this guy. Everyone else loves him. Like they all are like, wow, this is great. Like you all trust him completely. But you, the one who rolled, something's just not clicking. And then you can have it that where it's like, man, the party, if they're like good role players and story players, they're not going to be like, we all believe this person. Like, let's fight this guy that just, they have a weird feeling about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's like one of the, you really have to watch metagaming with that kind of stuff. Like your characters don't have this insight. This one character does.
Yeah.
It can be tricky in a group of players who are just like, we want to win. You can't.
Yeah, I just thought it was such an interesting way to do it because this person who was talking about this method, who has a TikTok, and it was just a one-off in my endless scrolling, so I can't name them. But they were saying like they self-identified as autistic, and they were like, there are a lot of times in the world where I will be like in a social setting, and like I just like am not like I'm picking up on signals differently than other people, and so that's how I rolled it into those moments, was that you are just like you are perceiving what's happening just inherently differently than the other people in your group. And you can try to convince them of that, but like they kind of don't get it why you think this is weird, you know? And like I thought that was such a cool way to put that sort of stuff in there.
I also want to just throw this out there because, like, when are you going to get a chance again? But one of like the things that I do also for rolling insight on enemies or other players or just random NPCs is one thing that I saw a lot of people doing is like someone rolls low, the DM will just outright like lie, which I feel like, okay, they roll low and whatever you tell them, the player knows that it's not right. They saw their number. So I just have a benchmark where I'm just like, okay, I don't use insight as, yeah, you think they're lying to you. Yeah, you think they're a danger to you. I say your insight is what extra information will there be? Like, if you roll a 2 and you're like, oh, you trust them implicitly, like, oh, I should not trust them implicitly. Where if you say, oh, you roll 2, well, you don't really get anything above and beyond what they've actually said. Whereas if they roll a 20, like, his eyes were darting to the left a lot whenever he was, like, making promises.
Yeah.
So that could, like, small little signs, I think, are more telling for a player than being like, this person's good, this person's evil. This is just some body language that you've picked up on. These are some small signs. And then that way, too, you can sort of plant the seeds without having to be like, yes, this is a bad guy. You rolled high. You figured it out.
Yeah, totally. And this is like a separate kind of episode, but there is something hard about skill checks, especially in social skill checks, where one person will make it, but then the whole party receives that information. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's tough. That's just hard to deal with. You gotta, like in general.
I mean,
you gotta whisper.
Yeah. Pass some notes,
and just hope that your player doesn't read the note and then go, "I tell the party," and then reads the note.
Yeah,
you gotta. That's the trust between the DM and the players. Be like, I'm going to give you this. Role play it into some of your decisions. Let the other players pick up on it. Because anything that becomes like, you want the story to maintain interest to everyone and not just be like real quick one and done type roles for all of it.
Yeah.
Roles should be important, but not like they shouldn't end the game or either.
I've also heard somewhere, and I believe this 100%, that no story essential thing should be behind a skill check.
No, definitely.
I thought that was really interesting, and that it always should just be an easier way to do something, or like a safer way to do something, rather than if you don't fucking do this, you're all kind of screwed. You have to go and become better at that thing, I guess.
Yeah. So like one of those yes but things, where if you have like a locked door and the players need to get through it, be like, okay, you broke, like you've damaged your lock picking tools. They won't work again. But you got the door open because you need to get through the but.
Powered by the Apocalypse does that great, where it's a semi-success, where like it's, I think, 7 through 9. 7 through 9 means you did it, but it's always a great way to do it.
Yeah. Actually, I've been curious. Is there an alignment chart type thing in Monster of the Week or Powered by the Apocalypse or any of the other non-D&D games?
So they do something I think that is super interesting, and I really like, because it goes into the more nuanced part of this, where instead of an alignment chart, you pick adjectives for yourself at the beginning. And for different classes, they'll have different adjectives. Like there's one for the Flake, which is sort of like, the conspiracy theorist of Monster of the Week. Yeah. And there's one that's like reclusive, untrusting, things like that. And you gather a few of those, and then you have you could place yourself on a chart, sort of like how this person's going to interact socially. But it doesn't really delve into like, you're good, you're bad, unless you're dealing with, like there's some classes like the Monstrous, or in like Urban Shadows, the Tainted and things, where a lot of it's baked in of like, whatever part of you is this extra powered part is not always acting in the best interest of the current world and the people around you. So it's a little like it can get alignment-y like that.
And it's been years since I've had a chance to play, so I might be speaking out of turn with like whatever updates. But I think also like a really fun alignment chart is in Vampire the Masquerade, which isn't in such you're good or you're evil. It just sort of like implies that you're a vampire, so you're bad. But it lets you choose ways to like, how do you interact with other vampires? And it's like, okay, it's based on clan, but it does give you like some, like you can pick who you would want to like. Who's the nice vampires? I don't remember, but there's definitely some that are worse than others. So there's also like you can do that instead of an alignment chart too, just like a faction-based alignments to keep it out of that good and evil range.
Yeah, and man, that reminds me. It's been a while since I played Vampire the Masquerade, but one of the things I did like about it is that yeah, you're a vampire and you're not a good person by any stretch of the imagination, but if you go too far off the deep end, you're going to lose yourself to like the monster inside you. So you have to be careful, which I think makes some great role-playing experiences because well, first off, I'm not thrilled about playing like a complete sociopathic monster. And also, if you were to just solve every single problem that you have with violence, it's going to get boring real quick. And there's a little bit of drama there, which I think is a kind of a cool way of doing it.
Dramatas.
And also, Dungeons and Dragons does have a section in the character builder that's like, pick statements that ring true for you. And some of them are, I always help a friend in need, like whatever.
Like ideals, bonds, and flaws.
Yeah,
Right.
and those are also ways to track kind of alignment without the simple binary or the
Quadrary.
Quadrary.
Yeah.
Quadinary. TM, if that's a thing that I can do.
Daniel's quadrary.
Quadinary charts.
Evil campaigns, I mean, that's a thing that people do. That relies extremely heavily on the alignment chart, though.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's probably a whole different episode is playing an evil campaign.
Yeah. Actually, that'd be a really fun one to do, too.
It would be, but like also, like, wouldn't it get kind of boring? Just like, well, we're powerful, so we solve it with violence.
Well, again, that's why you have to have evil, yes, but codes and things that the players can and just can't do. Like you don't like there could be evil character. Yeah, we'll solve this with violence. Well, not if the town, like if you're playing all vampires, well, there's a pack of powerful vampire hunters. You can't do everything with violence because you don't want to draw attention to yourself in that way.
Yeah.
So there are ways to like curb. You can always curb a murder hobo. Like that's just you just have to think outside the box.
You just gotta out-murder them.
And yeah, generally you can out-murder a murder hobo because remember, as a DM of your story, rocks fall, everyone dies is always in your back pocket.
It is a viable option. I've seen it in practice.
Yeah, I think that we've really kind of touched on a lot of different points of the alignment chart and sort of alignments in general. I actually really do want to do how to run an evil campaign, Sean. I think that would be a fun episode just because I've never done it, but it's so interesting to me because it's sort of like pitting the player against what you're really trying to do is like convince the player, be like, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure you want to like say that those words that you're going to like suck the souls out of all these children right now? Like you're going to do that? Like it's so interesting to me. It's like sort of like the game versus the person. But does anyone have some final thoughts on alignments?
No, just that it is muddied and nuanced, and it should definitely be talked about with your players and your DM. Maybe not all the time, but not infrequently.
You can also just remove it if it's like too much, people can't agree. It doesn't come up so much that you actually really need to worry about it.
Yeah. It's a great starting place for somebody who wants to build a character that they can start role playing from. But I would never say like curb your role playing because of it. Like if you don't, it's not a useful tool if it is just hindering you.
Right. Yeah, it's something good. It's a good jumping off point.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
How about you, Greg? Anything else?
No, I think we wrapped it up pretty well.
What was your last Vampire the Masquerade character?
Man, that was a long time ago. It was in high school, so
Did he have a faux hawk?
I think it was
Was he a European soccer star?
I think I had a very mean DM, so I think the first thing, like 15 minutes into the game, I opened the door and it was sunny out and I didn't realize it, and that was the end of that.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah,
Okay.
I haven't
That
played-
doesn't sound like a mean
No.
DM. That seems like a bad DM.
Yeah, so, this is most of the stuff I've been reading in theory. I'm not an expert in the slightest. Also, I don't know if I could do an evil campaign, tempting as it is. I don't know if I could do that, man. I'd have to go some places.
Just to throw this out there, if you like an evil campaign, the Dungeon Keeper series of games would be a great place to start from if you want inspiration.
I love that game so much.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time on Tabletopped if you want to, and I highly suggest you do. We got some great memes going on over there. You should follow our Twitter at Tabletopped and follow all the nice people on here as well. Anything to plug, anyone?
Daniel, you're at Coronor with a K.
Yeah, out Coronor with...
Why don't you spell that? Because that's kind of a hard made-up word, so spell it for us.
Oh, Korrenor.
Great. And that's actually...
God, I hope that's right.
It also very much sounded like the beginning of a song. All right, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye.
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 Thanks, everyone, for listening to another episode of Tabletopped. If you're interested in talking with us, please send us an email at tabletoppedpodcast@gmail.com. Or you could follow us on Twitter at Tabletopped. Our DMs are open. If you like the show, please do the things that podcasts tell you to do. Subscribe, rate, share with friends. And if you don't like the show, may I suggest sharing with enemies? I mean, that would show them, right? Thanks again to everyone who follows the show, and we will see you next week for more episodes of Tabletopped.